Well, here we are in November, and what I see is the Photinia glomerata, now absolutely covered in berries. The most attractive sight. Especially against the blue sky. Okay, Bert, let's go through the gate and have a look at one or two things. Good boy. Autumn has definitely arrived in the garden now, and I think the colours of the Japanese maples are wonderful. Here we can see the red of Osakazuki through the yellow of Sengokaku. A wonderful combination. When Lady Anne Palmer was still at Rosemore, I got 6 of these hollies, which are now up to 40 feet, I would say, to provide some shelter from the gales from the estuary, which used to come up into the garden before it had really become established. This is a hybrid holly called chestnut leaf. A very attractive holly, and look at the berries. Fantastic number of berries. Rather aptly named, I think. These toothed leaves. Ilex coniana, chestnut leaf. Coming into the Victorian garden, we reacquaint ourselves with the giant Euonymus, the ginger lily, which is vast but over now. But popping up beneath it is a very late flowering poker, which I really love. This has been all around the garden, i.e. there was a big clump in the autumn border originally, which I've divided over the years and planted in different places. I don't know what the name is, unfortunately. It's got lost in the mists of time, but in the same way as that Nymphophia ruperi, it sort of starts off conical, gets bigger, and ends up much more rounded. Not quite as large and fat as the Nymphophia ruperi, but a lovely shade of yellow and very late flowering. I always wonder if it's going to flower at all, and then suddenly there it is. I've got it in several different places in the garden now. Coming around the corner, there is actually an unusual plant here. Nothing really to write home about it. In fact, it's a member of the stinging nettle family, Urtica. But this one is called Boehmeria cylindrica. Now, not much to write home about, I think you'll agree. Little upright spikes in November. Now, you can probably see the resemblance to a sort of stinging nettle in the leaf, but it doesn't sting. Now I'm showing you this because actually there is also a South American climber called Boehmeria, as opposed to this, which is called Boehmeria. Now, I'll talk a little bit about Louis Boehmer, after who this is named. He was a German who actually sort of emigrated to Japan, and because of his horticultural background in the 1870s, he was very useful to the Japanese government, who was setting up an agricultural and horticultural businesses, and they wanted to learn the latest sort of techniques. So Louis Boehmer obliged, and he rather liked it in Japan and decided he'd stay. He made his own nursery, and he lived there for several years before getting ill and going back to Germany. His business was called L. Boehmer and Company of Yokohama, and when he got ill in about the 1890s, he sold up, and as I say, died in having got back to Germany in the hope of some more advanced medical care. He died at the age of 53 in 1897 or so. Coming down to where the rhododendrons are concentrated, we have this delightful small shrub, a Euonymus, called popcorn. Now, it's a very memorable name, but the thing is that the seeds are also quite memorable, and I think it's rather well named. There they are, the white fleshy capsules with the orange seeds inside. An attractive shrub. Now, Euonymus hamiltonianus is actually a very large growing shrub or small tree. This is a version of it, but it can be pruned to keep it in bounds. Delightful contrast with the white and the orangey red. Now, November is definitely the month for chrysanthemums, and I thought we'd talk about what I think is a very special one. This is a chrysanthemum of the palest pink with a darker center. And the smell is fantastic. It's giving off. This is a very ancient variety of chrysanthemum called the Emperor of China, and it is believed by many people to be the chrysanthemum that appears in ancient Chinese painting, certainly going back to something like 500 BC, which is incredible to think about. Originally in China, it was like so many Chinese plants, adopted in Japan and became the imperial flower, and of course the Japanese emperors sit on the chrysanthemum throne. The thing about this chrysanthemum is it's very tall and floppy, but really this could be made use of as it is here. It's actually sort of resting on a red-leafed malus crab with its red fruits. And the two together, I think, make rather a pretty picture. The malus just beginning to turn its autumn colours. Now I'm going to just divert into Daoist philosophy. The Daoist was a system of philosophy, ancient philosophy, in China and Japan, and the philosophy was centered on human and nature being at one with each other, which is rather contemporary, I feel. Anyway, the chrysanthemum was supposed to have magical properties, and elixirs made out of chrysanthemums were supposed to prolong life. In fact, the alchemists of the Daoist tradition were looking for the elixir of eternal life, needless to say. They didn't find it. So this chrysanthemum has a long history behind it. Coming up the path here, I've spotted the hibiscus finally coming out. It's completely herbaceous. It grows to about 4 or 5 feet in the season. And unfortunately, as so many things that are flowering in this late time of year, it is rather susceptible to the damage of the weather. And we've had some tremendously heavy rain and some wind, so it's rather damaged the flowers. Nevertheless, I think this is the most extraordinary and spectacular flowered herbaceous plant that we grow here. This is an enormous flower, really. You can see it's got a bit damaged around the edges of the petals. This is Hibiscus moscheutos. It comes from the eastern United States. It follows, really, rivers and wetlands. But here I grow it in a well-drained sunny spot because it's only just hardy. But a gorgeous thing. Well, we'll end up just by looking at the Camellia sasanqua, the winter camellias, a great bank of them here. Lovely colour and scent. Very welcome in November to see all this.